Hello and welcome to the Sideline Live podcast. My name is Orla Keeling and I am the host of the podcast, where every week we bring you a brand new episode with guests ranging from Olympic champions to local heroes, coaches, support staff and anybody involved in the world of sport. Each week we will dive into different topics, including current affairs in sport, identity, skill, mindset, coaching, and also shine a light on those flying under the radar. So tune in every brand new episodes, new stories and new insights you've never heard before. Okay, delighted to be joined by author, most importantly fellow podcaster and former Galway underage player, Ciaran Murphy. Ciaran, thanks for joining me.
Hey Orla, how are you? Nice to be here. Thanks a million for asking me.
Talk us through your elevator pitch for the listeners who don't know who you are. I have a lot of kind of other sports, notably basketball and sometimes an international audience. What's your elevator pitch?
My elevator pitch for myself. Is that how these things operate? I'm not entirely sure, but yes, I'm an author and podcaster, as you've said, co-host of the Second Captain's podcast, and yeah, columnist with the Irish Times, sometime junior footballer, washed up serious footballer. I think that's pretty much me, really, or at least as much as I'm willing to share at the moment.
Are you not a hurler by now? No.
Yeah, well, I mean, I dabbled. People make mistakes in their in their teens or in their 20s that they spend their life apologizing for. I waited until I was 42 to take up hurling, and I don't think I have any apologizing to do, unless there are any purists in the West Waterford area that had their eyes assailed by watching me learning how to play hurling for a couple of summers, but that's a story we can get into.
Yeah, is that confirmation that the dream is gone? Is it the hurling dream?
Yeah, I think I squeezed all the lemonade from that particular lemon. Yeah, but I had an amazing summer down in Waterford, and I was actually back there again last summer. After the book was finished, just because we loved it so much down there, and I did a bit of hurling last year, but at my advancing years, I'm 44 in July, so it's a miracle I'm playing football, let alone trying to juggle dual status. And there's no hurling in Temple Oak Sing Street either, so I'd have to go joining another club. And quite frankly, I have enough football gear from enough GA clubs at this stage. I don't need to go adding another colour scheme that I need to start worrying about.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was remiss of me not to introduce. I do have my copy here of Old Parish. You did write a book on, we'll get into this, but the brief story is you went to West Waterford and took up hurling at the ripe age of your 40s and decided to write a book about it. But I did love also This Is the Life as well. I have a couple of questions I want to go through that. But in terms of the the dual player, when you bring that up, do you feel the pain now that these inter-county elite stars like Conor Callan has to make this decision?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't think I'm qualified to speak to a hurler / footballer as good as Con, but I do. There is an interesting thing about the dual player and dual clubs, maybe even more so than dual players. I think with dual players, there's an understanding there that the schedule is just so tight now, and the schedule is so remorseless. Like say for a club footballer and club hurler in Dublin, for instance, like say down the leagues or whatever, you're probably looking at 30 league games, or maybe 27, 28, maybe if the hurling leagues aren't quite as big as the football leagues are. And that's before you even get to championship. That's before you get to the middle of July. So from February to July, the idea of playing 30 games is just not really feasible. It's not really doable. But I still think that there is a lingering respect and kind of fascination actually with the dual player. And I say if you kind of watching the club season as it unfolded, the GA club season as it unfolded, October, November, December of this year, so many of the stories that really seem to catch people's attention were the dual stories, whether that's Lobmore Castellani in Tipperary or Éire Óg and Ennis winning the double in Clare for the first time in whatever it was, 30 years. Brian Hayes, a hurler of the year nominee, being St. Finbarr's best player for them in the football championship in Cork. I think that there is still like that lingering fascination, admiration for someone who can do both. And whatever about a player kind of uh, reaching total self-actualization by playing both, I don't know that that's the case. I think that there is an onus maybe on more GA clubs to say, well, we may be a predominantly football club or a predominantly hurling club, but that they should at least make the effort to be a dual club. That they should, offer all the meats of the GA stew, and I actually kind of believe that as well. Like after my own experience of playing hurling at a low level in Waterford, low being junior B, given kind of how small Old Parish and Shanafubble is as a GA club, um, but very progressive, obviously. That that it's just seen as something that you should do. That you should have a football team, absolutely, but you should also have a hurling team, and you should offer your players the outlet of both of the major field sports in the GA. And I think that um, that's something that maybe more GA clubs, rather than just saying, "Oh, well, listen, it's not for us. There isn't a history of it in our club or whatever." I mean, histories are easily rewritten. So yeah, it is like up the lines, up the grades as you get to intercounty. I mean, it's not even remotely possible now. And even at the bit, it's just brilliant to see senior clubs in both be able to provide for both sports. But Con is kind of an interesting one. Nafina got all the way to won the club championship last year, and there was only one footballer really in their entire squad. So, if it's not possible even at club level, then you really are kind of dealing with unicorns.
You remind me of one of my favorite I've um, kind of folded over the corners of some of my favorite section of the book, All Parish, and page 187, where you talked about how you were talking to Liam Griffin, sorry, the former Wexford manager, won the All Ireland in '96, and he said that Kate Middleton, when she came to Croke Park, had more of an opportunity to play hurling than a large population of kids in Ireland, and that really struck a chord with me. And I was like, God. And I know there's a lot of work now going on with trying to provide clubs and facilities and the road shows with the hurling, and that big push from Croke Park. But when you wrote that, I said, geez, he's right. There's a lot of
Yeah,
kids,
well,
and you grew up not really playing hurling either.
no, not at all. And it's Liam's line, and it is a deathless phrase. Delivered with sort of the the customary energy and zeal that you get with Liam Griffin, who's just such a wonderful, energetic person. But yeah, so I grew up in Northeast County Galway, in a monotheistic culture. It was football and Gaelic football and nothing else. There was no rugby, no soccer, no hurling. Um, Gaelic football was the genuinely the only show in town. And so my dad is from Unshanafubble, from Old Parish in Waterford, so he would have grown up playing a bit of hurling, and so for that reason, we would have had hurleys in the parish. But like they were the only hurleys in Milltown. Like there weren't other houses with kids playing hurling in them, and yeah, and you kind of just accepted that that's the way it is. But when I was 11, like when I was 5 and 6, Galway were winning All Ireland titles. That's kind of I can't really remember them, but I remember distinctly Galway being in an All Ireland final in 1993 when I was 11, which is a very impressionable age for a guy. And I was down in the pitch in Milltown, the GA pitch in Milltown, playing hurling with my dad. For whatever reason, I wasn't training, and like I was getting, slagged by my teammates for like it was looked on nearly as an affectation, um, which is mind blowing when you think about it. And I kind of didn't think twice about it really when it was happening, but to think that I'm playing a GA sport, one of the two major GA sports, in a GA field in a county that was in an All Ireland final that year, um, and it was seen as something nearly alien. So that that always kind of stuck with me in a way. Uh, and I would have then knocked around playing a bit of hurling in college, like in the park, basically. Um, but the itch never really kind of left. The idea that percolating somewhere, I suppose, in the back of my mind. It would be great to play hurling, one game of hurling. And I managed to parlay that into into a book.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you about was being a dub. I've a little bit of experience of going to clubs outside my own, not playing but been involved
Yeah,
and stuff like that. And one club, not in Dublin. And it was really interesting, and a family in Galway actually, down Connemara direction, and kind of seeing the different kind of makeups of clubs and the roles they play within a community. The role that my club plays in my community is a bit different because it's quite a big club and quite a big area. And one of the things that struck me from the book, page 168, was about the Drama Society and how a lot of clubs have it, absolutely, but the line where plenty of villages have drama societies, but not many have the level of engagement at the creative level, and fewer still have their standout hurling midfielder in his early 20s writing and starring in productions. And it just gave a very unique insight into a very different type of club within a club and within a community.
yeah. And that's John Flynn, who is a brilliant hurler, genuinely brilliant hurler. And the play I describe in the book was kind of like a War of Independence slash Civil War drama, and he wrote another one this year, and I was annoyed I didn't get a chance to get down to see it, about Shergar, the disappearance of Shergar. So I mean, like, this is just he's just bursting with talent and bursting with creativity, and he got like all of his contemporaries on the hurling team, or many of them, to star in both of those plays as well. And I just think it's a beautiful thing, and I think you can't separate that from. Well, maybe you can, but I think it kind of goes hand in hand with the Gaeltacht experience as well, because Football is in the ring Gaeltacht, um, and there is just a love of Irish culture and the chonga and the games, and there's no, it's completely sort of pretentious uh, connection to music and culture and the arts, and it's just seen as a part of daily life, football and in Ryan, that you express yourself in whatever way you want to express yourself, whether that's through sport or through music or through poetry or through drama. And, it is a genuinely very, very special place. And it's very different even to where I grew up as well. Like there's kind of, I've worked with enough dubs to know that there's, sometimes there's like Dublin and then there's everywhere else, and there's obviously huge variations between places around the country. Like I lived this one in that, like, my mom is from Milltown where I grew up, and my dad is from Football. So I having lived down there for 2 summers, I now understand my dad and understand where my dad came from and how he was formed, his foundational experiences. I just have a much better understanding of that for having lived where he grew up, which is a real gift. So, like, I was bad at hurling. I was actually worse at Irish. But I think there was I think there was like an understanding, at least on both of those counts, that I was down there trying it. Yeah, so yeah, that's it. I mean, but it is a beautiful thing, And my uncle has been involved with the Ashtory Shanafobal for years and years, helps set it up. So again, there's just completely and utterly unpretentious, and just a lovely, uh, different method of expression. But that's all it is, not better or worse or higher or lower, just another outlet for it.
And it gives a place for people to be involved that no longer can or don't want to pick up a hurley or a football. Like, I interviewed Joan Keogh, the chairperson or chairwoman of Kilmacud Crokes GA Club. Full disclosure, it's not my club. I was just living in the area at the time and someone connected me. And I was blown away by their club, and everyone gives out about them, whatever. But the amount of stuff that they had in their club for the community that wasn't just hurling and football for boys and girls. There was cycling clubs, there was everything. GAA clubs are becoming more than just GAA from what I've seen, the evolution of it.
Yeah. And I write about it a little in This Is the Life, this idea of a third place, that for many people, their life is, home to work to bed, home to work to bed, and there's like that cycle, and your personality gets kind of subsumed in either one or the other. So, home is first place, work is your second place, and that's it. And so much of maybe modern life can often be a search for a third place that isn't. You're not there driven by economics or driven there by family, but somewhere where you can put something in and get something out of it without it being a financial transaction in any ways, whether that's a book club or whether that's poetry readings or whatever it is, or a story. It doesn't matter. What's important is that there is an outlet there for you that kind of reaches beyond just home and work. And GA places clubs have always been that for a lot of people. I think even though they wouldn't put quite so kind of sock and polish a phrase as a third place, but that's what it is. Um, and I think the GA have been good at leaning into that, and kind of understanding that they have a position in these communities that makes it easy for it to become a third place for people, even those, as you say, who no longer can play or didn't feel like there was space for them to play, or had given it up maybe at a young age. And yeah, I think that's a really important function that the GA plays, and it kind of fell into it, but I think it does a good job of nevertheless fulfilling that role.
There was Connor and Island, obviously his book The Racket. Gavin Cooney was the ghostwriter for that, and they had a live show, I want to say last January, and I went to go see it in the Sugar Club. And I asked them at the end, I asked both of them, what was the biggest lesson you've learned from writing the book? And I asked Gavin through his lens of looking at Connor's life and his family as the ghostwriter, and he said that sport is a vehicle to relationships and moments with family that help build connection with one another. And that obviously was a huge theme of This Is the Life. It also was the underlying theme as well of Old Parish, not just from your hurling journey. And I think you spoke there about your dad and learning about him, but the line in 159 with your cousin Patricia saying, it was in the second half, Galway were beating Dublin, and she leaned over and said, Ciaran, I'm so sorry, I'm your cousin, haven't seen you in 25 years, I don't mean to bother you, but Galway have just gone 2 points up with 10 minutes left in Croker. And I think that embodied what it's like to have family and passion for GEA in that one line. I can really bring the scene to life when I was reading it. I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah, well, that was a very funny evening because, yeah, so Trisha's dad is my dad's first cousin, and her dad is kind of club chairman, possibly the best player Old Parish have ever had, the best footballer they've ever had, played for Waterford for years. And so I would have had quite a bit of dealing with Michael, her dad, in the run up to joining the club and then all throughout. And but he had three daughters and a son, and they were all living in Dublin. So I hadn't actually met them that summer yet, and there had been kind of plans made to meet up with them, and it just hadn't worked out. Up until that day, the first round of the championship, when they were there. And it turns out that Trisha, the cousin that is quoted in the book, literally lives 200 yards down the road from me in Dublin. So she's literally a neighbor, and she'd bought she'd bought her house like, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks before that, and then she had like a sister who lived maybe 400 meters from my house in Dublin, and a brother who lived maybe within a kilometer of my house in Dublin as well. So like hilarious. Like you couldn't write how near they actually were to me in Dublin. And Trisha and her husband Tom are like they're like our best friends in in Kilmainham where we live, in Inchicore where we live. So yeah, like talk about weird symmetries, or I don't know, but yeah, like again, as I say, it's kind of it's mad. You grow up beside, grow up where your mom is from, and obviously her family, my first cousins, all of my aunts and uncles on that side, they're all kind of quite close by to where I was when I grew up. And I loved my uncles and my aunt in Waterford, of course, and saw them whenever I could, but it just wasn't that regular as a result of living kind of 160 miles away or whatever. Um, so moving down to Waterford just meant that I could meet them. I'd just be in Dungarvan mooching around getting a coffee, and I'd run into my cousins. It was a running joke that I couldn't go into Dungarvan and not meet one of my cousins. And that was so lovely. It's not a thing, oh, we must catch up, and you sit down and how are the kids? And, you kind of have a conversation that tries to span the time since you last spoke, which is 3 or 4 years, maybe in some cases. And instead, you're just mooching around Dungarvan, having a chat and talking about nothing, but in a really relaxed and informal and lovely way. So I kind of have that forever now, which is a lovely thing. Um, and I thought maybe there might be an element of that in the writing of the book, but I had no understanding of just how deep those connections would be, and in a really lovely way. That's kind of that's the real gift of the book, regardless of anything else that comes from the book or anything else. That's just such a gift.
What was the reaction locally after you wrote it and they read it?
Oh well, I mean, the launch night in the Marine in on Channel Football. I mean, it might have been the most fun I've ever had. Genuinely, it was just so gorgeous, and so many of my teammates came out in force, and so many of the neighbors came out in force, and family obviously were there in big numbers and everything. And Joe Canning was down to launch it, and Jamie Wall, and it was just really a very, very special evening. Um, and yeah, it's weird actually. I kind of thought that I would have been more of a disruptive. That was my big concern, that I would be a disruption in the dressing room or whatever. But I think there is an element with um, Gaeltacht clubs, that they understand that they have TG Carr and they've Radio na Gaeltacht, and there's kind of like an outsized focus on them because there's Irish language broadcast stations that that they're very, very interested in what happens in Old Parish and on Rhine and in the other Gaelic areas as well. So I think that they were just used to the idea of, oh, there'd be someone making a documentary, or there'd be someone, TG Carr News would be down talking. Like they were just like, oh, grand, you're writing a book, grand, like what else is new? And so yeah, there was none of that, and the messages I've gotten since have just been so lovely, and I've been down since, and everyone was thankfully very, very complimentary and everything. And but yeah, even just the extent to which people have reached out to say that they enjoyed it, that they were so eager to tell me that. And I heard from someone had told me, oh yeah, that they were at work and they were explaining where they were from, and they said, oh, I'm from the Gaeltacht in Waterford, and they've spent their entire lives, when they say, oh, I'm from the Gaeltacht in Waterford, they go, oh, oh, you're from Ring. Um, but on this occasion, the person said, oh, you must be from Old Parish then. I just read a book about that. And this person got the biggest kick out of that. Like for that alone. So yes, I keep getting told I put them on the map. They've been on the map. Old Parish is literally the oldest Christian settlement in Ireland. They've been on the map longer than anywhere else in Ireland. But the number of people that have said that I've put Old Parish on the map has been very heartening, and that's been that's been an enjoyable part of the whole affair.
Yeah, that's your true legacy, is increasing their Irish kind of presence
Yeah,
on
yeah,
Google. I'd say it's gone up by about 100%. Whereas
yeah,
Old Parish.
yeah, their visibility. But yeah, I mean, they don't mean I have been accused of being like a sleeper agent for the rural West Waterford Tourism Board, but yeah, it is. I mean, if you're anywhere close to Dungarvan, you have to head out to Helvick Head in Ring and out to Old Parish. It's a beautiful corner of the world.
I'll have to put a sponsored kind of banner on that now, paid for by the
Yeah,
Rural West
yeah.
Waterford. In terms of being a prominent media member, I was asking Jackie Hurley about this as well, because I don't think people realise how good Jackie was at sport and at multiple sports.
Mm.
Just deciding to go down a career in sports journalism, you obviously played for St Vincent's in Dublin and also commuted home. played for your old club Milltown as well as Temple Oak Sing Street, and you did play for Dublin in the Masters team as well, just to note that as well. But
I did.
just in terms of, going down a path in terms of your professional career that kind of would have kind of written in the stars in terms of not playing Gaelic football at an elite level, just deciding that. I'm just interested in your experience of trying to balance both at the club level and not pursuing it beyond that.
Yeah. Well, I always wanted to be a sports journalist, and I know that that is not super common amongst people that, like, at 8 years old, they would know what they want to do. But my uncle is Jim Carney. He's the first presenter of the Sunday game. And I just thought he was like, had, the most glamorous job in the world as a GA commentator and a writer then with the Tuam Herald as well, a sports editor with the Tuam Herald. So it was a job I always wanted to do, and kind of maybe my mom and dad might have thought that I'd grow out of it or whatever, but it was never, I never wavered really. It was just always something I had kind of a grow for. Um, so it wasn't a thing that I was, that I thought, okay, well, I'll have to juggle X to do Y or whatever. It was like, I want to play Gaelic football, I want to be a sports journalist, and I'll make it work to the extent that I can make it work. And I don't quite know if you're framing that I had to choose one or the other. I mean, if like I played a summer with the Galway under 21s, and if things had gone differently and the Galway senior footballers had come calling, I'm sure I would have at least tried to make that work. It was certainly not through choice that I was turning down the Galway senior footballers. That's for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's like yeah, it's kind of it's like I was working in news talk like straight out of college on Off the Ball, which was like 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., which is problematic for training and all the rest. But I was also a sports journalist that was off the weekends, which isn't actually all that common
I was
either.
going to
So
say, yeah, how'd you get that
yes,
gig?
yeah, so there are kind of like swings and roundabouts to it. Um, but I mean, it wasn't kind of straightforward. I've been in Dublin now for 22 and a half years, which is longer than I lived in Milltown. So, that was never going to be particularly easy, and I didn't have like a super long career with Milltown. I mean, I was playing senior at kind of 17, 18. And then, I went to college and there was a couple of years off. And then I came back, got to a county final in 2007, played on for a couple of more years after that. But it was like, it is tough. It is tough to juggle living on one side of the country and playing on the other. Um, but the journalism was not, geography was the problem, not journalism. Um, and, from a journalistic point of view, I mean, I like the fact that I'm playing the game, even just say if in the last like 12 months, the idea that, the new rules come in and I'm, in Lucan in February playing under the new rules. Sure, that was just a massive boon to me, to my journalism. The fact that you could actually sit down and write about your own personal experience of the rules. It was kind of priceless, and I've always kind of felt that my whatever understanding of the game I have is greatly increased by the fact that I have played and that I'm still playing, or like up until recently anyway. I'm hoping in 2026 there'll be a few balls kicked in 2026, but I haven't started yet. But yeah, like and whatever work-life balance you're searching for in your job, but regardless of what your job is, whether it's sports journalism or anything else, I mean, it's just such a gift to be able to go out and train and play a few games. It like just as a release from the stresses of work. I mean, that's been priceless to me. I've always like really loved that part of it, where whatever is going on, if you're down the pitch at 7:30 for an hour and 20 minutes, then that's an hour and 20 minutes. You're not thinking about anything else other than just enjoying yourself and pushing yourself. And whether you're in accountancy or journalism or anything else, that's priceless.
Obviously, you're 20% of second captains as per your Instagram bio. In terms of going out on your own and being part of the what is second captains. Just did you ever see it get to what it is now?
Um, I don't know. I think you can kind of offer up a lot of hostages to fortune by planning what you think a thing is going to be. Like the uh we didn't have so we started our podcast in 2013. We left News Talk in whatever it was, March or April of 2013, and set up our own production company. And we didn't have a plan for what that would be. Like we were doing a TV show by September of that year, and the podcast was launched maybe I think maybe April, May of that of 2013 as well. So what we were doing at that time really was figuring it out ourselves, and like if it wasn't for Serial, I don't think people might not have even known what a podcast was at that stage. I don't know if you remember Serial, but it was like, kind
I've
of maybe
listened
the
to it.
first,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe like the first, podcast that entered the public consciousness, that it was in the kind of zeitgeist at that time. And it was sure it was a boon to us, that we were able to actually explain what a podcast was. Because, like it is hard to put yourself back 12 years, 13 years, when, so many people have podcast. It's just like that's how many people consume the news now. But in 2013, no one had a podcast, like really no one had a podcast. And I think we just got in at a very opportune time, that within kind of 2 years, podcasts were really, really growing, and within obviously, and now you look at the current situation. So we were timely in that respect. Um, and then in relation to kind of Patreon and, putting a portion of your work behind the paywall, I think we timed that well as well, that we were kind of the first ones in Ireland to do that. And now that's just an accepted part of kind of the podcast landscape that, if you are, independent media and you're not backed by a newspaper or whatever, that's just, that's just part of the deal. So, um, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to overstate the level of planning that went into what we were doing. It was really just like, how do we continue to broadcast together as a group of five people who just really want to create things with each other. Um, and that was a TV, that was a podcast, that was annuals in the first couple of years. That was a load of fun to do, live shows, all that stuff is a happy byproduct of just the five of us kind of sticking together, and yeah, just kind of believing in ourselves that there would be, that a space would be created for us, or that we would create that space ourselves. So that's that was kind of a quite a like a stressful time in our lives, but actually we look back at it with an incredible amount of fondness.
Before I move on to Sideline 7, I want to know what's next. Give us an exclusive. What's coming? What's the third book going to be?
Yeah, God, it's actually hilarious how little time people give you. It's like at the launch of the second one, you're getting asked about the third one, So I don't know. I'm not writing a third book at the moment. But I presume that I mean I've enjoyed the kind of the creative process of writing the first two so much, and like it's weird. You talk to you talk to some sports journalists, and they have this saying, like the surest way to make sure you don't write a second book is to write a first book. And like that just hasn't been my experience at all. I've just really, really enjoyed writing the two books that I've written. So um I you know I'm in a lovely position that I don't have to write a book every year or a book every second year. It's kind of if a topic kind of grabs me and I'm interested in it, then I'd look forward to throwing myself into that. But at the moment, thankfully, I'm focusing on the podcast, which is and like the next couple of months could have the potential to be absolutely just huge. If we do happen to go to Prague and win that playoff semi final and bring the Danes back to Dublin or North Macedonia or whoever wins that game. And if we qualify for the World Cup, then obviously all bets are off for the kind of the sporting year of 2026. It will just like careen off road in the most beautiful way. So yeah, like that. Looking ahead to 2026, that's the kind of thing that's really exciting me. But I'm very lucky. You know, I love going to work every day, and I love working with the people I work with. So, whatever the year turns up, I'm sure we'll have a good time.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to have the book to change it up as well. Like obviously you're doing the columns as well for the Irish Times. It's just different from the podcast. You're not just doing everything all the
Yeah,
same.
yeah, absolutely. And do you know, like we've obviously been working together. I think like this is year 23 now or something. You know, which is kind of I don't know, like the Rolling Stones are the only shower of owl lads working together for longer than us. I think, but um. Yeah, so like for that to continue, I think you do have to just have some stuff that's your own. Ken has his column in the Irish Times Zone, obviously with Premier Sports, and Mark with his BBC Sounds, Second Captain's co-productions, Steak Knife, and whereas George Gibney and Simon then just keeping the entire show on the road. Like we're very lucky that we kind of have we have those outlets as well, just so we're not kind of staring at each other thinking like, God, life depends solely on
On each
the
other.
other, yeah, on the four of you lads staying alive for another year, so
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
a big one,
I do have one other question I do want to ask. You've probably interviewed, I'd say, well over a thousand people at this point. Who have you not interviewed yet that you want to interview?
Oh, um, I'd like to talk to Steve Kerr, the Golden State Warriors head coach. He has an incredible backstory. His father was a lecturer, died in a terrorist bomb attack in the Middle East. Just a really, really thoughtful person. Isn't afraid to kind of speak up about the various just devastating things that are happening in America at the moment. Yeah, he's a name that pops to mind. Uh, a lot of the time it's the bigger the name, the more distance there is between you and the interviewee. And it would be lovely if Steve Kerr decided to holiday in Dublin sometime, and we could grab him in studio for half an hour, 40 minutes. That would be pretty. That would be pretty neat.
Yeah, well, if there's any men to do it, it's definitely yourselves, and you can let me know so I can do the second
Yeah.
interview when he's on holidays. Sideline 7, Ciaran, the same 7 questions at the end of every episode. Conscious of time, we'll go through this maybe rapid fire.
Yeah.
Question 1: what's your favourite quote?
Funny, actually, we were talking about just the process of leaving News Talk and Off the Ball, and the kind of the germ of that in a lot of ways. Well, we were in Sopot in Poland for Euro 2012, where Ireland were based for the duration. And it was kind of so we were living together in an apartment for 3 weeks. We had the best time. It was just so, so great and so much fun and broadcasting from there every night. And we had like Trap and Marco Tardelli up in our like literally our apartment, broadcasting from the kitchen table, whatever it was, 4 or 5 days before our first game against Croatia. It was just a wild time. But it was kind of around that time that we would have been obviously we were spending so much time together. We were just kind of chatting about kind of, what we were doing and how much fun we were having and whether there were different, outlets we could have for that. And I was reading a book at the time called Conquest of the Useless, Reflections from the Making of Fitzcarraldo by the filmmaker Werner Herzog. And I'm not one really at all for scribbling in the margins of books or scribbling down lines that I like from books. And I know that I should. I'm so often I'm reading a book and I was like, oh, I should underline that. And it's just, yeah, I never do it. But there was a line in that really spoke to me at that time. And it's to fail to embrace my dreams now would be a disgrace so great that sin itself would not be able to find a name for it. And if you know Werner Herzog, like he's just a utterly deranged man. Just a brilliant person, surreal, like a surrealist, satirist, philosopher, madman. And the book is brilliant, like genuinely just he kind of takes you to the about as close as you're ever going to get to someone having a mental breakdown while also trying to make a like a massive movie about moving a ship over a mountain, which is what the which is what Fitzcarraldo is as a movie, but he ends up pretty much living the story of the movie in his own life while trying to do it. And I remember just buying a notepad and scribbling that on the front page and taking it from there. And actually, I had it on the, I had it at my desk while I was writing "This Is the Life," because it's like writing a book about yourself is just so like it's really egotistical, like it is. You can't kind of, and you just have to accept that. You know what I mean? Like, what's the point? You know what I mean? Like, like if you're writing a book where you're kind of writing about your own life, your own experiences, and obviously it speaks to much broader themes than just my own life, but you have to accept that it's an egotistical thing, but you have to work past it if you think you have something to say. And yeah, so that quote's kind of followed me around for the last decade or more.
Amazing. I love that one. Best sporting event you've been to? This might be hard to pick.
Um, well, I'll tell you, Ireland, Portugal, last November really, really close because, like, many sporting events are emotional, many sporting events are thrilling. Not many sporting events you could say are objectively hilarious by any measure. But Ireland, Portugal really genuinely, like, I laughed for 15 minutes in the middle of it, which is not something you ever say really at a sporting event. But obviously, Galway winning in Ireland when you're 16 years old, that's going to take some beating. So the 98 All Ireland final, yeah, if they win another one, maybe it'll come close because we've had to wait so long for it. But for now, the 98 football final is unbeaten.
Out of interest, what's on your bucket list to do you haven't done yet?
Uh, with caveats, I'd like to go. I'd love the Masters. Um, but the Masters is such good telly, like genuinely, you would miss out on the best kind of 4 days of television if you happen to be there. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm not much of a man for bucket lists actually. And if I'm on holidays, I tend not to go to sporting events. I watch enough sport that if I decide to head away somewhere, sport is often the last thing in my mind. But yeah, the Masters maybe would be fun.
Fair enough, fair enough. Question three, the biggest setback or challenge so far in your career, and how did you react to it?
Yeah, I think I've probably answered that one really, haven't I? Without banging on about news talking off the ball too much. But yeah, that was yeah, you kind of have to be like proud of how all that went, how proud of how all that played out, and kind of where we are now. It's that's a lovely thought.
Question four, on the flip side, your biggest achievement in or outside of sport?
Yeah. Ooh. Um, I suppose writing two books is an achievement. I shouldn't have said how much I enjoyed it though, uh, because really I did. So it doesn't feel like an achievement if you really enjoy doing it. But I suppose that's it. Like reaching a county final with my buddies from school, from national school in Milltown. Like that is an achievement for a club the size of Milltown. Like we really are a very small club, um and that is an achievement, and it's a lovely thought. But the fact that we lost it, the fact that the day didn't go well for me on a personal level, I can't call it an achievement. Yeah, but that was a lovely, that was lovely. That was genuinely, that was a beautiful summer. That you're kind of going on a run with the lads you were in school with that you knew since you were 4 and 5 years old. So, um, I certainly wouldn't have called it an achievement at the time because I was so devastated by losing it. But looking back now with maybe the perspective of 19 years, you can say, yes, that's a pretty good achievement.
Question five, advice to your 18-year-old self.
Oh, maybe go on a J1, but like at the end of college, because all I did was play football, I was just like kind of laser focused on Milltown and although to be honest as well, like I do find myself blaming football for not doing that, but I think probably I was also a little kind of afraid as well. Um, but I wouldn't have a whole lot to say to that young nerd, to be honest. Any mistakes I made around then weren't fatal. So, I, he did all right, I think. I don't know. Would he even listen to me? Probably not. Let's face it, I'm old as shit now. So, yeah,
That, in fairness, that actually comes up a good bit. Would I actually listen to my older self? Probably not. Question
yeah.
6: dream dinner guest and why?
Yeah. See, I always think this is a weird question because, like, dinner with my wife and two or two or three of our best friends, that's a much better dinner than dinner with someone famous, which would be extremely stressful and awkward. Uh, but having said that, I feel like, Martin Scorsese would make an effort to be sound, and he'd do most of the talking as well. Um, so I don't know. Yeah, that's my answer with caveats.
Okay, fair enough. I'll take it. I'll take it. Final question before I let you go. If your life was a book, which it kind of is, what chapter would this be called?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like yeah. I mean, I hope it's the middle. I hope it's the middle. I don't know, but I am an optimistic person by nature, and I'm a very happy person at the moment. So, I think that's a lovely thing to be able to say. Um, so yeah. I don't know if that's necessarily an answer, but yeah, it is. Yeah, it's. I don't know. I actually don't know. The merry middle or something like that. I hope it's the middle, as I say.
Well, that's a lovely way to sign off, and it's bang on 8 o'clock. Ciaran Murphy, thanks for your time.
Thanks so much, Aura. I really enjoyed that. Thank you very much.